A month after the fall of former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad's government, Russian President Vladimir Putin declared his support for Syria's unity, sovereignty, and territorial integrity in a phone call with Syria's new president Ahmed al-Shara. Syria in turn expressed its willingness to cooperate with the Kremlin, with President al-Shara saying, "We do not want Russia to leave Syria the way some would like." This warmth between the governments in Damascus and Moscow follows a historical pattern that has existed since the post-World War II era. Even before Hafez al-Assad became president, Syria and Russia cooperated extensively, and the same was true in the opposite direction. So today we ask, what is the root of this closeness? Historically, the main reason was America, or more specifically, opposition to America. That's because Syria's main external conflicts were with two parties. First, former colonial powers allied to the United States, such as France and the United Kingdom. And secondly, the State of Israel, who was strongly backed by the United States and these former colonial powers. Russia, on the other hand, stood against the US and Western Europe. Thus, the interests of Damascus and the Kremlin were aligned. Russia also saw Syria's Mediterranean coastline as strategically valuable. A Russian military presence there could threaten southern European NATO members. This strategic logic materialized in the establishment of a Soviet naval facility in the city of Tartus. Russia's presence in Syria helped deter Israeli or American action against the country, especially after the 1967 defeat, when the Soviet Union actually cut ties with the Israelis. Additionally, the government in Moscow provided Syria with favorable credit terms for purchasing large amounts of weapons and supported economic, energy, and infrastructure development. The Assad regime, under Hafez and then later his son Bashar, maintained deep ties with the USSR and then Russia after the collapse of the Soviet Union. When Putin and Bashar al-Assad came to power in the year 2000, they inherited already strong ties. Russia's stance under Putin did not differ much from that of the Soviet era, and neither did Syria's. When the Syrian civil war broke out, the government in Moscow feared that regime change would mean a new government supported by a rival power. That could of course threaten the presence of its military facilities in Tartus and later Khmeimim. Despite that, we need to consider what Syria's new government seeks to do, which most likely involves rebuilding the country and therefore securing its borders. As in the past, the presence of Russian forces in Syria could help secure the country's borders by deterring attacks from outside powers. Not only because of Syria's defense, because anyone looking to launch any attacks have to consider what Russia will do in such a situation. As President Ahmed al-Shara put it, all of Syrian weaponry is Russian, and many energy stations are operated by Russian experts. So that being said, it's in the Kremlin's interest to maintain its partnership with Syria and protect its strategic footholds in the eastern Mediterranean, especially since the Ukraine war has increased their importance. But one major change is the new Syrian regime's openness to the United States and the aforementioned former colonial powers. In the 1950s, US support for the State of Israel and alliances with Britain and France created a wide gap between the governments in Damascus and Washington. That gap only grew over time. Now though, each side seems ready for cooperation. In February 2025, French President Emmanuel Macron called President al-Shara to express support for Syria's transitional phase. Meanwhile, Donald Trump met with al-Shara in Riyadh, where he lifted US sanctions on Syria. This is different from the past, when Syria was largely anti-American and closely aligned with Russia. Today's more balanced approach leaves space for Russian influence, especially in domains where Russia has historically succeeded. Russia's cooperation with Syria during the war years, for example, when most countries stayed out due to sanctions, gives it a unique advantage that not everyone has. But this time the Kremlin will likely face more serious competition from the United States, Turkey, and other European countries over cooperation with the new government in Damascus. Thank you for watching.